So I think I'm ready to finally tell my birth story. I had my son on August 25th. Um, there's a little bit to unpack here, so if it takes more than one part, I'm really, really sorry. I hate when people do that, but you guys wanted the story, so it might take a little while. So I was due August 18th, went to my 40-week appointment, got a membrane sweep, nothing. That Monday, which was the 22nd, I started having really bad contractions at like 7:30 at night. They got to the point where they were like 5 minutes apart. We ended up going to the hospital at like a little after midnight. And they didn't progress. So I got sent home Tuesday morning at like 4 a.m. They sent me home with some sleeping stuff. I was able to sleep for a couple hours. And then all day Tuesday, my contractions were like less than 15 minutes apart for the entire day. And I slept in like 8-minute increments. They sent me home and said it was like early labor. So I was like, oh, this just must be what early labor feels like. NBD. So I was supposed to have my 41-week appointment that Thursday, the 25th, and I called them on Wednesday morning and I was like, I cannot go on another day like this. I need to come in today. Something's not right. This has just been going on for way too long. So I went in for an ultrasound at 3:30. The tech did like the test. She said that he was not moving a ton. He had no fluid. He wasn't really breathing a lot, but he had a heartbeat. So that was good. They can score up to like an 8 on this test. He scored like somewhere between a 2 and a 4, depending on how generous she was feeling with scoring, she said. I was set to have an appointment with my OB at 4:15, and the ultrasound tech was like, I don't even think it's worth you having an appointment. You're probably just going to get induced. So we went back to the waiting room. She went and talked to the doctor. The doctor decided to still see us. We went in. She was like, you're probably going to get induced based on how everything's looking. You're 40 weeks plus, like we'll be 41 weeks tomorrow, but let's just do a cervical exam and I'll call labor and delivery and let them know where things are at. So she does the cervical exam and she's like, are you aware that you are actually like in active labor? She's like, are you having contractions? And I was like, yeah, same as Monday. And she was like, closer together? And I was like, yeah, but like nothing is happening. And she was like, you have no fluid because you have a bulging bag of water, and when you stand up, your water might break, which it didn't break. She was like, do you have your things? I was like, yes. So she sent us across the street to the hospital. We got there a little after 5. We came home and let the dogs out first. We're settled in by 5:30, ready to have a baby. I was at like a 6.5 by the time we got to the hospital. And we just had dinner and kind of settled in for the night. Sorry, there is going to be multiple parts, but that was part 1. Part 2 of my birth story. So, like I said, we got to the hospital around like 5:30. We just kind of hung out, had dinner. I had some nice mac and cheese. We just tried to like settle in. I was having contractions, but like it was pretty bearable. You know, our midwives came in. We had 2. We had our nurse changeover around 7. So there was like a lot going on to keep my brain busy. Around like 9:30, I got to a 7. When I got to a 7, contractions got super intense, as they should. I think they call it like transition period or something. I don't know. That's when things got like very uncomfortable. I should note that around like 8 o'clock, they said it was going to be a long night. So I had my husband go to bed and I put in headphones and just did like some hypnobirthing type stuff, just like to keep my mind occupied. He was feeling left out. So like 10:45, I finally got nitrous oxide. And honestly, it did nothing for me. It was just a distraction. Everything still hurt really bad. I did not like the nitrous oxide. My nurse said that people call it the baby bong, and that could not be more true. At 11:30, I was at an 8, and I finally gave in and got an epidural. I was like, you get the same baby either way, and for me, this pain's not worth it anymore. My body did not take great to the epidural. They gave me about half the amount that they typically use, I guess. Getting the epidural I did not find to be bad, but my blood pressure did not react great to it. I was freezing cold, shivering, which is very common, and it just did not agree with me. And that's when things started to kind of go south overall. So around 11:30, I had Phil go back to bed after I got my epidural. I was like, I don't know how long this is going to take, and it's going to be a long day tomorrow, so you should sleep. Around 1:30, that's when things just started to decline. He was not doing great. He didn't love contractions. Every time I had a contraction, his heart rate just kind of dropped a decent amount. So they kept having to wake me up and reposition me to see if that would help him, and it just didn't. By 1:30, I was at like an 8.5. They were nervous to give me Pitocin because he was already just having a hard time, so they didn't really want to add any fuel to the fire. And that was when they manually broke my water. It still had not broken. My OB had said that she thought that if they did not send me to the hospital then or check, my water would have broken, and I would have been in the hospital that night, but it didn't break, so who knows. By 3:45, I was at like a 9, and they tried just to have me push to see if we could get him out. They said I had a very stretchy cervix, but I pushed 6 times, nothing happened, and he was not doing well at all, so that is when we decided to make the call to prep me for a C-section. And I am so sorry, there is going to be a part 3, but it will be him being born, so it will be the very end of it. Part 3 of my birth story. I am so sorry that this is 3 parts. It is the last part. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but here we are. So as I said, at 3:45, I was at a 9. They tried to have me push. I pushed 6 times. Nothing was happening. He was not doing well at all. So we decided to prep me for a C-section. So we get back there. Everything is good to go. The procedure felt like it took 2 seconds. All of a sudden, we heard him scream, and he was out into the world. When he was born, he either breathed in or yelled so quickly that he caused a pneumothorax. They wouldn't have noticed that if he had not had delayed transitioning as well. So he had just some fluid in his lungs, and he had to be on a CPAP and oxygen. So right after he was born, all of a sudden they start calling in all these people. It was chaos. The nurse kept coming over and talking to us, but I had no idea what was going on. All I knew is they weren't giving me my baby, so something was not right. They eventually brought him over and like briefly showed him to me for like 2 seconds, and then they took him to the NICU, and I had my husband go with him. As I've mentioned in another video, one of the things that we did that I'm so happy we did was I made an appointment. I went into the OR to tell the entire team in there, like, if the baby has to leave for any reason, please make sure my husband goes with him. Like, I can advocate for myself, he cannot. So my husband went with him to the NICU, and I, stayed and got all put back together. I told the anesthesiologist, he was so sweet. He was my stand-in husband. He just hung out with me and talked to me. He was like, how are you feeling? I was like, not great, really nauseous. And he was like, well, yeah, all your organs are outside of your body, so as they start to shift back into place, you'll feel better. Also, because I had already started pushing, they had to vacuum him back up, which was weird. He was also born with low blood sugar. I didn't have diabetes or anything like that, gestational diabetes, so I guess it just kind of happened. And because of that, he had to be on all these machines for the first couple days. He was on oxygen for about 6 hours and a CPAP, and I was on morphine and Pitocin. So he was born at 4:43. I didn't get to hold him until 6 hours later. I didn't get to see him, so I made my husband stand on the other side of the room and FaceTime me from my bed to the baby's little thing he was in, so that I could see him. So that's when he was first born. He was on his CPAP, and then he had all those leads on him to monitor his heart and everything for his hypoglycemia and IV. So he was hooked up to all that until Saturday. And we had to feed him every 3 hours and take his blood pressure and prick his heel and take his blood, and it was crazy. But luckily, it was all very minor things that were all treatable, nothing permanent, and he was born at exactly 41 weeks.